Okay, chapters, letters 21 and 22. We have spent a few letters now where Screwtape has been both responding to and kind of further explaining broad strokes of the demonic interaction with our fleshly, animal, carnal desires, what the moral theologians might refer to as appetites. We've been talking about gluttony and its manifestations of physical appetites and the kind of the interesting ways that it's come up, not just cramming more down our gullet, but is kind of neat gluttony of the delicacy. But really, these last few letters, and we're going to continue on with this, having to do with the satisfying of our physical desires. And by physical, I mean non-spiritual or immaterial, but the desires connected to our bodies in some manner. We spoke a fair amount last time about the concept of love. Hell rejects love as being true at all, because were to love actually exist and hell understand it, they would have no choice but to receive it, and it would destroy hell. It is their steadfast refusal to open their eyes, unstop their ears. This is the, none so blind as those who will not see. And kind of at the heart of their practical discussions with the tempting of this guy is just how abstract this is to them. They understand it really well because they've been watching us forever, but they only understand it from the outside looking in. So remember, not only do they not understand love, they're not physical beings. They're only spiritual beings. So they are experts in observing us, but sometimes they just fail to understand us because they don't get it.
Well, they've never lived it.
They've never lived it, and they can't quite bridge the gap of the physical experience, the time boundness. A lot of things that they use to our disadvantage and their advantage, but there is still kind of there is an abstraction. There is some of this talk, as nuanced and as detailed as it is, it's still kind of academic. This is maybe a little bit like the people who write, exceptionally long, lengthy, detailed books about parenting who have never had any children.
Yeah.
About love and relationships who have never been married. There's some things that you just have to experience. This is not unrelated to a concept that I've not brought up explicitly in this particular book, but it's several times it's kind of popped up into my head. But this is the famous saying from St. Anselm, fides corens intellectum, faith seeking understanding. Faith seeking understanding. There are certain things that you cannot understand until you believe them. Normally, we put that the other way around. We don't believe something until we understand it. And that makes sense, and it's true in many ways, but there are some things in life, and to be perfectly frank, he suggests it's the most important things that cannot be understood until you trust them, believe in them, experience them for yourselves. You cannot really understand love until you experience it. You cannot really understand marriage or parenthood or any of these other sort of things until you actually experience it. Our life with Christ is not just a progressive level of intellectual understanding. There are certain things we will never understand until we take that step forward and simply say, yes, Lord, I believe. I don't know how yet. I don't understand the mechanics of it.
Yes,
But we
Lord.
actually learn more. We understand better when we step closer through belief. So understanding more is you know, an understanding in a practical sense, and these are all good things. But again, there are certain things, and maybe these are some of the most important things that really can't be understood or can only be understood to a rudimentary level until you take the step, take the plunge, and you dive in. And the demons, because of their refusal, at this point at least, never will. It will never understand these things, though they know quite a bit about them externally.
There's a verse in the Bible. Angels looking at us too, unable to comprehend how Christ loves us. I'll find it.
Okay.
Good verse.
All right. So here we go. 21. Yes, a period of sexual temptation is an excellent time for working in a subordinate attack on the patient's peevishness. So something must be churning in this guy. We've had a few letters now talking about his desires and love, and there has been some sexual talk, some, you know, advice on the tempting, you know, for fornication purposes, for potential adultery, even just marrying the wrong kind of girl and finding the sort of person and keeping them together who will make each other miserable. So you got to think that this guy is maybe having some thoughts, some feelings, maybe there's people around, whatever it is. What's the poetic thing about the springtime and the young men's flights turned to fancy or whatever. Remembering again, this guy is probably early mid-20s, and that can be a rather significant time in thinking about love and sex. Or I mean, any person, but I can say for men certainly. So temptation, this, I'm going to say this goes without saying, because I think we actually have said this at least in the beginning, but I could be crossing my wires with something that happened in Sunday school. But is being tempted a sin? No. Being tempted is not a sin. Jesus was tempted. Jesus was tempted in the wilderness by Satan himself, but does not sin. It's what we do with the temptation. And if I haven't used this particular metaphor, I did use it in Sunday school because that's why it's in my head. Norman Vincent Peale, the Guideposts guy, had a great little story, I thought, about I think his dad was a pastor or something like that. And he was very, very troubled I get the impression maybe a teenager, even a young teenager, about he was having all of these sexual thoughts, and he was very disturbed that as a Christian, he didn't want to have them. And, you know, he told his dad very shamefully about his struggle. And his dad said, "Son, you can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can prevent them from building a nest in your hair." And it was this illustration that really worked for him to give kind of this really practical distinction between being tempted and what we do with that temptation. we can't stop thoughts from flashing through our mind. We can't stop images or people from walking in our purview. The letting the bird make a nest in your hair then is taking those thoughts, taking those images, taking those people, taking those opportunities, and oh, you know, you're letting it settle in. You're letting it dig down deep and mess stuff up. You're letting it make a hole. What's a nest other than the bird making a hole? And I'm going to be here for a good long time, and I might even lay eggs. And the longer you take this illustration, the worse it gets. But the idea is these are temptations that may come and go, and we have little control over it. None of us are in our 20s anymore. So some temptations may wax and wane. There may be peaks and valleys. There may be seasons of life. Lewis, in a different work, it might have been Mere Christianity, basically cautions us about either being overly hard or overly dismissive of sins that we don't struggle with. And you can go either way. You know, this is, pointing out the speck in your brother's eye and forgetting the log in your own. Like, because I don't struggle with what you struggle with, then I can really stick it to you, because you're a lousy, miserable sinner, because I'm not tempted by that. And, you're clearly terrible at it and it's awful. And like, well, because that's not my temptation. I feel very high and mighty. The other thing is, if it's not your temptation, you can also just sort of dismiss it out of hand. Who cares, whatever, to the point where you not only could potentially put yourself in a worse situation when things change, but you might make stuff harder on other people. Well, this doesn't bother me. Okay, but it's bothering other people. Some of this is almost like politeness. If you smoke and you go into somebody's house, do you light up a cigarette and just start blowing in their house without asking or understanding? I mean, no, we just kind of know better. This is not the 70s anymore. Who would walk into the community building during an AA meeting and crack open a beer and just go sit in the corner? Well, that's not my struggle. I'm not an alcoholic. Yeah, but this is a serious issue, and there are people who are struggling. Does that mean no one should ever crack a beer because other people? No, but again, it's about
empathy.
I would say, I think empathy is a good thought on this, but just like not taking it too far one way or the other. When something is not one of our pet temptations, that we still respect it, but we don't go overboard one way or the other. This is something of a lengthy preamble. Years ago, it's been a good long time. It's been 6-7 years maybe. Over Lent, I took the Sundays in Lent and I preached on the deadly sins, a different one each Sunday. And I was very nervous about lust because I was going to have a frank discussion. It wasn't prurient. I don't think it was crass. I really worked on it to be very careful about what I said, but it was one of those like, never let it be said this has never been mentioned. I will mention it, but I will do so in a way that is in its clarity is still also appropriate from the pulpit in a public service of worship. And I won't say who said this, although I could because he's dead. But a parishioner was mad at me for preaching on lust. But his reason for being mad is because that wasn't a temptation for him. And now, like 80 years old. I don't care about that. Nobody cares about that. We shouldn't have to hear about that. Okay, well, maybe there was somebody here who would benefit, or because they now know something they can share with someone else who wasn't here, and maybe they were going to benefit from it. Like maybe this is a subject that your grandkids, would still need to know something about. Anyway, as we start talking a little more purposefully about this, about sexual temptation, sexual frustration, or whatever, whether or not this is something that gets to us at this stage in our life or in this particular season or moment, kind of doesn't matter. This is a very common sort of thing. Probably things that we have experienced at some point, may experience again, who knows? But this sense of this guy is struggling about something. Something is churning inside of him. It's physical, but it's also emotional. And Screwtape seems to have the thought like, aha, he's in turmoil. Now I'm really going to get him. And or Wormwood thinks that. And Screwtape is like, yeah. But, you still need to be strategic, and you still need to be careful. When we are struggling with unfulfilled desires of a physical nature, pick one, doesn't matter. How does that impact our emotional state or our mood? Ice cream. How does that impact?
If I want it, I want it.
If you want it, you want it. And if you can't have it, how does that make you feel?
You're frustrated.
Right. So whatever that desire, that appetite, that hunger may be, if it is not being satisfied, it tends to heighten our emotional sensitivity. We get a little more peevish, we get a little more annoyed, we get a little more frustrated, we get a little snappy. A little short of the people. This is the very classic
Hungry, angry. Hungry, angry.
hangry. You get hangry. This is the classic. I mean, it's not exactly it, but like marital counseling issue. You have this big blow up about somebody left the cap off the toothpaste tube. It's never about the toothpaste tube. It's about 20 other things that you've not dealt with, and this was the straw. One straw, the stupid little thing, but everything came out because of that. I'm in a bad mood. I'm snapping at people. I am banging around and kind of, whatever. My mood is worse. I'm making your mood worse. And it actually has a relatively simple explanation. So Screwtape gets it. He's trying to encourage Wormwood. Yeah, it is right to use it. There are particularly effective ways to use it. And what does he suggest? This happens very early on in this. Men are not angered by mere misfortune, but by misfortune conceived as injury. We all understand at some level that bad stuff happens. Where it really tends to set us off is if we can somehow construe what happened as being personal. When a flat tire is a very impersonal thing. The tire has no feelings or emotions. The nail that you ran over, did not put itself in there because it knew you were coming. All of these things, but how do you feel when it happens and you're already late for something? It's like a personal offense. It's an insult. It's an injury. It is not at all an uncommon phrase. The universe is against me. Anything that can be construed as personal feels sharper because it feels insulting. It feels unfair. As a matter of fact, when the Mafia Don sends his goons to break your legs and they say, it's not personal, it's business. It's supposed to make you feel better. Because if it's personal, then they're trying to get to you. They're trying to upset you. It's unfair. But if it's just business, at least it sounds like it's fair. Like, oh, well, either I get what I deserve or I run over the nail. Yeah, it happens. You know, statistically speaking, I'm going to run over X number of nails per year. Because it just feels sort of matter of fact. But as soon as we can construe it as something is against us, it's not just the difficulties of the calamity, it now feels pointed towards us.
Bad karma.
Bad karma. I'm why are you out to get me? This is so unfair. And it really deepens kind of the ugly feelings towards it. These same temptations, these same unfulfilled desires, okay, well, I'm an unmarried man in my 20s. My hormone levels are going to do such and such. I live in an area with X number of women. I'm going to see things or know things or something. Or, that somehow the universe is conspiring to keep me alone. God is punishing me, and I, whatever it is. As soon as you can kind of make it in your mind, at least, seem like it's unfair and it's just against you. Like, you don't have to bother. This doesn't bother you. You don't have a nail in your tire, man.
20-somethings don't care about women. If the video game did something wrong, yeah, my boys could care less about being undating with them.
So
Drove me crazy.
my sister, I have one sister, she's 5 years older. Her summer job in high school was a lifeguard at Wet n Wild in Orlando, great water park. She wore the Wet n Wild uniform was a red bathing suit, red like the St. Stephen's t-shirt. And she would come home long days in the sun, and her skin was about the same color as the shirt. And growing up in the early 80s, she would lay out by the pool. And we didn't have sunscreen in the 80s. We had suntan lotion or suntan oil. Matter of fact, I remember baby oil. Sometimes she'd bring out a pot. So
My sister did that.
I mean, living in Central Florida, you didn't need to color with anything, but just the fact that she, burning to a crisp was a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm the kid who always wore a shirt in the pool. Still do. I'm the kid who did not work as a lifeguard. I'm the kid who did not lay out by the pool and baste myself in juices. I mean, I'd swim and stuff, but so which of us has had a Mohs procedure to pull skin cancer out of our face?
No kidding.
Not her, me. And it's just like, it's so unfair.
I'm with you.
Right? And so never underestimate our ability to construe misfortune as insult. There was something really great that came up several letters ago when he was talking about him and his mom, the patient and the mother kind of chipping at each other. And it was something about whatever she does, whatever little habit that really ticks him off, that presses his buttons, make sure that he believes she's doing it on purpose, that she understands that it bothers him and she is choosing to antagonize him. Because that's how these little habits will really, really eat at him. Same thing with this. These unfulfilled temptations or desires or whatever, as they eat at us or they bother us, whatever it is, make sure that it feels very personal. Make sure that it feels like this unfair on purpose just to get me. kind of thing, because again, that not only sours and spoils our mood and a variety of other things, but it's so completely and perfectly inward looking. Oh, woe is me, 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 me. So here we are with that same sort of thing. I have a legitimate claim and it's being denied. That is always a deeper level of grievance when we feel like, in Spanish we'd say, no es justo. It's not right. It's not fair. It's unjust. That really gets our blood pumping when we feel like something is unfair.
Tomorrow.
Kids have to be told this a million times. Life is not fair.
Oh, yeah.
But adults will not always remember that lesson and will act as though the real arbiter of whether something should or should not have happened is in them about what their calculus of fair and unfair is. And stuff just still happens one way or the other. All right. So this is moving us into this really kind of cool, this really cool issue about his time. And the transition is basically in thinking about the self and its desires and ones are fulfilled and unfulfilled, we start feeling a sense of ownership of ourselves, that when these desires are unfulfilled, it seems very personal. So we're looking inward. And just how easy that is to apply as though we are not stewards of our lives, but we are sole proprietor owners. And that is an enormous, enormous difference. The biblical understanding of everything that we possess is as a gift from above, of which we are to be a good and faithful caretaker, a steward, to receive the gift and do well by it. And that gift is our time, our talent, our treasure, all those various things, but it's also our lives. There is not a single one of us who can force our lungs to continue to fill with air and our hearts to beat. We can't do it. Technologically, we can put you on a heart bypass machine, or we can pace you, or we can, we can have the respirator on you and mechanically open your lungs and stuff like that. Well, yeah, until the power fails, you can't make it happen. And again, and as soon as those interventions are gone, certainly you can't. I mean, we can concentrate, but at that point where, for all of us, it goes beyond what our muscles do, we're done. There was a phrase that I didn't grow up with this phrase, but I heard it relatively early on, and it just made this difference, and I incorporated it. Basically having your first prayer of the day, Lord, thank you for waking me up this morning. The alarm clock didn't wake you up. Our internal biological clock didn't wake us up. These are things that might have helped with our alertness, or these are things that coincide, but the actual ability to awaken. There's going to come a day where there's no alarm clock that's going to wake you up. There's no biological clock that is going to open your eyes, because you're going to be dead. So these other things that can be, aids and assistance, ultimately it is the gift of God that gives us every moment, as well as our physical bodies, as well as our relationships and experiences and possessions, and all these sorts of things. When we forget this, take this for granted, misuse this, that is when we confuse and mistake being a caretaker and a steward, a servant who is entrusted with something precious in order to take care of it and use it well, versus being an owner, like a sole proprietor. I paid for it, I own it, it belongs to me.
I can do what I want.
I can do what I want because I'm mine, except we're not. We were bought for a price. But even beyond that, you know, there are none of us who have anything that we have created ex nihilo out of nothing. We have received. We are very much and this is a meme right now that I've seen in a bunch of places about you know, the billionaire saying, well, I founded this company that made $1 billion out of my garage, and they show a picture of the garage and, you know, in their parents' home, and it's like this 25-car garage filled with Porsches. You know, like not all garages are created equally. Like you took all your parents' money and then you invested and you make more. The idea being we have what we have, and I'm not discounting effort and choices and everything else, but we don't start from nothing. Nobody does, not in a philosophical existential sense. Old joke about the scientist who says, aha, we've done it, we've created life. I've taken the soil and I have, you know, bombarded it with radiation and chemicals, and we now have you know, we now have a true biological process, and there's no need for God because we've done it, and now we've created life. And God appears. That's really cool. That's a fun trick. And the guy says, "Oh yeah, it's not a trick. We're gonna challenge you to." Oh, okay. And so let's do it. You take your, you know, you make life, and I'll make life, and God scoops up some dirt, and he blows into it, and boom, there's Adam. And the scientist goes and he scoops up the dirt, and God says, "No, no, no, no. You go get your own dirt." The joke being, who made dirt? God made dirt. When I say ex nihilo, out of nothing, that is on purpose to say God creates out of nothing. We always take something and make something from it.
Right.
Are you waving like
Yeah.
Okay.
So you said something incredible. Go back to it. We've been bought with a price. So
Yes.
but there might be like a secular part of a person's life where, you know, we're the master of our own destiny,
right?
But in the Christian part, the profound thing you said, because we do live like we're the captain of our own soul. We've been bought with a price.
Right.
What was the rest of what you said? We're not the master because we've been bought with a price.
Yes. Yeah. And
that's
and even, but again, even
our lives like I can do what I want, and then I'll on Sunday and take care of that Sunday.
And this is, you know, this is where this discussion is really moving towards, whether it is talking about his sexual desires in his body, or he has this thing about people wasting my time. We take that a great offense at that, as though these are things that we possess outright. Instead, we are entrusted with them as gifts. And if we want to be even more crass, we can even say we have them on loan. You know, they don't belong to us, but they are given to us to use well, to use rightly, to use faithfully, but also to one day return.
Right.
So what changes when we remember that? My day is not my own. My life is not my own. My priorities are not my own. My money is not my own. My energy is not my own. I will confess to a tough year. And in that year, I have felt many times just physically exhausted, which leads to an emotional and a spiritual exhaustion. And coming to grips with kind of a phrase that it feels significant to me, because it's a principle that I feel strongly about. There are many ways I have given my life away.
So,
Um,
tough this year, or I mean.
Tough this year.
2020? I remember like 2020, 21.
right? Sure.
You.
Everybody
you
has-
Talking about. Republic.
Everybody has different times and different difficulties of different
Right.
different manners. But to not always feel like you see the end result of it. You know, I don't regret it in that sense, but there are times where I do wish I felt a more obvious return. You know, you expend your energy, you expend your love, you expend your time or whatever on something, you know, trying to grow that little plant, and that little plant just always stays so small. Or that issue always feels churning around about the same spot and doesn't really seem much better. Or that person always continues to struggle with those same things. Or, you know, that endeavor never seems to progress, or at least as much or as fast, or, you know, whatever it might be. What happens when we don't treat our lives as though we are owner and master, but as daily, moment by moment stewards? It changes maybe the choices we make, but I definitely think it changes our responses to what happens around us and to us. When we understand that the time that I have, and I've planned it out and I've budgeted it, and I know that I've got to do this next, and I've got 20 minutes for that, and I've got this other thing tonight. And when stuff gets in the way, I get mad and frustrated because it's not on my schedule and I already have too much to do, except it isn't really my time, is it? And this energy that I'm expending, it's not really mine, that I own it. No, I might possess it, but I possess it for a purpose.
Can I ask something? I remember another place where somebody got robbed and there said, well, it wasn't yours either. Now, I heard that and I was like, wow, I can't believe you told that person.
It doesn't seem like a particularly helpful or necessarily apt
No.
kind of comment.
Yeah.
There are things that are true that
That was
they lack context, and just because something's true doesn't also mean that it needs to be said at that time.
right.
You know, I would say that it's not a terrible reminder at some point to feel that, well, the things that in this life that I've lost, you know, God has given to me anyway. But it seems like a pretty terrible response to someone who is maybe scared or grieving or hurt or whatever. And I would say there are times where it is right and appropriate for us to keep that in mind, but there's a difference between us doing it and somebody telling us.
Yeah.
Lewis himself, and I think this is kind of tongue in cheek, but I remember him writing something about he was convinced that the only books we will have in heaven are those that we have loaned away and have never been returned.
Okay, that's pretty good.
But the demons love us to think of ourselves as owners. Now, the demons, they understand ownership really, really well. There's something that they do feel, I think, a sense of personal connection to. They own themselves. Remember, we've had this discussion in the past. It's this incredibly utilitarian, almost kind of a Randian objectivist. A is A. I am me, and anything that's not me is not me, unless, of course, I consume it, I devour it, and then I'm going to make it me. So they understand, especially self-possession, I think, very, very well. So there is this sense of, oh, absolutely, get this guy thinking about, if a girl turns him down, or if he can't fulfill these desires because there's no willing partner, that it's it's the universe conspiring against him, and it's unfair and it's personal. And then get him thinking about his time, and anybody asks him to do something or anything goes wrong, that his time is being not taken, it's being stolen from him. Get him, worked up and worried about his possessions and about his body, that it's mine, and me. And whenever he is talking about ownership, what is mine, have him thinking in this greedy, graspy, dominating way, because he's more like us when he's like that. And when he's more like us, he's closer and closer to us devouring him. We can use these same terms and concepts positively and appropriately. He talks about my boots, my dog, my servant, my wife, my father, my country, my God. All of those things can be used positively, rightly, and well in an identifier kind of fashion. They can also be used in a way that objectifies them and separates us further from them. To say my wife, she and I, we've been cleaved together, and we are in this together, and I belong to her and she belongs to me, and there's a holy mystery of Christ and his church and all this kind of stuff, and of all the women, this is the one, and of all the men, I am for her, and all this kind of stuff, versus, oh, my wife. I own her, and I tell her to jump and she jumps, and she does this thing and she better or else. Even saying my God, well, that's my God. And there's some nice hymns or some older praise songs that talk about my God. Understanding that exact same expression can be used positively and negatively.
And give us the negative example.
The negative example would be one of ownership and judgment that must, by its nature, imply our objective external choice. Meaning, we are reminded we did not choose him, he chose us. Right? While we were yet sinners, before we knew any better, while we were still enemies, as opposed to, I, as the Pope of my life, have surveyed my religious choices. I will choose that God to be my God. That is the negative way to use that same descriptor.
So couldn't you say all those words that you just said in the prevalent way that people say, my God, or GD,
Sure,
or the way they use
God's
name.
Yes.
That,
In vain.
And so casual. Again, kind of go back when we talk about casual dress.
Yeah.
Casual subjects. Not that we have to go back to being strict suit and tie on that.
Right.
But that we do use his name in such a casual manner.
Yes.
Whereas I like what you totally surprised me with what you said first. That he chose us.
Yes.
And while we were enemies and sinners, that we were that special, that we would, my Lord, as opposed to GD this or God that,
right?
Whatever.
And again, this is back to how do we see ourselves? To be the captain of your fate isn't wrong in the sense of, if you see, God has placed me on this boat and given me the responsibility and charge, you keep this ship off the rocks and you steer it towards good destinations, or, well, forget you, I'm in international waters, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
Again, it's that perspective, even saying the right thing, the demon's chipping away, pick, to start leaning and nudging towards taking something good and making it diabolical. And me, and mine, and it doesn't get much more clear than this. In the long run, either our Father or the enemy will say mine of each and everything that exists, and especially of each man. And they will find out in the end, never fear, to whom in their time, their souls and their bodies really belong. certainly not to them, whatever happens. In the end, we'll know that we are not the sole proprietors of our bodies and souls.
Oops.
Yeah, right? Okay, 22, something big has happened. 22, something big has happened. He, the man, the patient, is
In
in
love.
love.
Oh, boy. What a-
And it is the worst kind. Number one, this woman appears in nothing that you have sent me. That is a monumental oversight on your part. And we even the passive aggression is starting to ramp up because apparently Wormwood, remember the whole thing from a few letters ago about Screwtape was talking about love without sufficiently saying he didn't believe that love existed, and it sort of implied that maybe he thought it did exist, even though he disagrees with it, and that's going to get him in trouble with the lowerarchy of hell. And so now he's like, and now you have screwed up big time, and guess who's going to hear about it? So he is offering the uncle advice, but at the same time, he is reminding Wormwood that what goes around comes around, and now it's going to be your turn to sort of stew in your own juices and feel what the hot seat feels like, because you have made a catastrophic error. This woman who the guy has fallen in love with is terrifying. What's so terrifying about her?
She's so nice.
She is nice.
Her family is nice.
She is,
Mouse, like demure, simpering, significant version.
yeah. Now we're gonna get plenty of descriptions from him, and they're all negative descriptions. Every single one of them are taking something positive and just rewriting them with ugly sounding words. She is the sort of deeply faithful Christian where her kindness, her niceness is bone and soul deep.
It's real.
It is as real as it gets. It's all through her family. It pervades and it emanates from her. And Wormwood should be just terrified that he has allowed this guy to, first of all, meet and get to know, but then to fall in love with such a beautiful woman. We have almost no descriptions of her physically, but her beauty, because it is genuine and from the inside, cannot be denied in all of these various things. Now, he's systematically trying to run them down. You know, she's the simpering little mouse or that little brute, because she is this patient, kind, joyful, funny, supportive kind of person, all the things that hell hates. Now, when you hate something and you're losing, you know, being a Gator fan, watching Georgia win 2 national titles in a row,
Hey,
you know,
had
you
championships before. Pick another example.
you
got 2 basketball championships.
as a Gator fan, you see, you know, this arch rival start doing well, and you have to do something with that. It's very difficult to give credit where credit is due. You have to say, yeah, but they're cheating anyway. Or you say, you know, yeah, but their players are all criminals, or, you know, lucky break, or, you know, whatever it is, because, you know, whoever our adversary is, we don't want them to do well. And when they do well, it feels better when we undercut them or we can explain it away. So Screwtape has got all of these little things to say about this woman that sound really, really kind of bad and crummy. And very clearly, he is running someone down to diminish the fact that they're losing.
You said something extremely important.
Okay.
You don't know what she looks like. again,
Yes.
because it's heart and soul, not so much, even not so much that she's nice.
Right.
She's honest or whatever. She's only nice once because it's down here.
Right?
And.
But she's still nice and honest. Let's not lose that.
A pagan can be.
I understand that, but being nice and honest is still right.
Of course.
So the great thing about this is it is coming from this deep place of integrity and truth, and it's flowing outward in the way that it ought to.
And I think because maybe he doesn't go that far, but that is not capable of I'm just gonna say the faker, the non-believer.
Uh-huh.
They can fake it, but I'm thinking this person scared them so much because she got the real thing.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely scared because she has the real thing. I'm not gonna get. I don't think pagan's faking is the issue so much as it is. They don't care what she looks like physically because they have no physical bodies. They don't get it. We all look alike to them, I'm sure. They see beauty with a capital B, because in the same manner that, I think we talked about this last time, and God sending Samuel to anoint the king of Jesse's sons, and it turns out to be the one that nobody expected, because God looks on the hearts. It wasn't the guy who looked super kingly because he was tall and handsome and strong. It was one who was still out in the fields. And so, God looks on the heart, sees the soul, sees the spirit, sees the person. Remember, the demons are spiritual beings. They see our spirits. They may not understand our bodies, in a way that we do, like long hair, short hair, gray hair, brown hair, whatever. They all look like to me, but they see our souls. This has even been mentioned in the past, where the people in this little church that he goes to encourage him to see their outward appearances because of their pettiness during the day or whatever. Because we actually know a couple of these are like big. They look like scary warriors to us. Make sure that guy doesn't see what we see. Same thing with this woman. They see beauty in her radiating out in almost a blinding light. And that is the light of Christ. So the fact that she has, comely features or a shapely face or whatever, never comes into the discussion. And they probably can't appreciate such things anyway. What they can appreciate is this is a woman who,
could take our man away.
Could not only take our man away, but what are we even going to do? Like, we can't touch her. This is somebody who is not afraid of us and who's going to kick our butts and take our lunch money. But this is a really, really, really bad idea. Which then we have this little detour for a moment philosophically in talking about God, referring to him as a hedonist at heart. All those fasts and vigils and stakes and crosses they're only a facade, or only like foam on the seashore. Out at sea, out in his sea, there is pleasure and more pleasure. He makes no secret of it. At his right hands are pleasures forevermore. Ugh. I don't think he has the least inkling of that high and austere mystery to which we rise in the miserific vision. Nice word. What a great fun term, like the lowerarchy, the miserific vision. So again, in theological terms, the beatific vision is a sight to behold which fulfills our very purpose and changes us forever. This is the wake up one day and see the face of Christ. The beatific vision is to catch a glimpse of the fullness of God that we cannot do in this mortal life. And it burns away all of our impurities. It draws us into his light perpetual. It transforms and changes everything forever. Not even the opposite, because remember, hell can't make an opposite to God. All they can do is just try to denigrate, twist, or trash what God has already made. So a miserific vision to see something so miserable or cruel or awful, it just wants to spoil everything. That is their ultimate goal and desire, their telos, their end. And he is, it is high, it is austere. Again, hell is super pompous. It takes itself extraordinarily seriously. The concept of joy, of laughter that's not mocking, of pleasure that is actually used rightly in its fulfillment. All of those are not only completely disconnected from the demons, they can just say that it's disgusting. They can only run it down because they can't get it, they don't have it, they don't understand it. It's the best they can do is to say George is a bunch of cheats and they're all criminals who paid for their players and they bought that championship. Because it can't be good.
Okay, so let's say then, that you gators are looking at them.
Yeah.
As if they're fakes or phone. So
Right,
I'm
yeah.
like,
You're a fake and a phony, by golly.
and that's what hell or demon.
Yes.
They can be angels of light and look pretty freaking close to the
Right.
real thing. And that's real dating. I mean, we have to.
Right, but never there. Right.
This does with wise and serpents to be able to see
Right.
that, oh, look at those people. They're all happy. They're kind of like they're the real deal, but they're not. They're like
Sure.
on the inside of the lives. But say that's what demons can do as well. They're great liars. That's cool.
Right. And they again we get this interesting little treatise on the differences. A heaven filled with light and joy and music. They hate music. They hate music. They also hate quiet. That was sort of a fun one. I think we can understand why they hate music. Music is creative. There is something profound and powerful within music. I'm talking about the nature of music itself, the fact that music exists. We're not going to get into genres and stuff. I'm just saying the nature of music. This is Wagner. All music is, all great music is intrinsically religious. This is his friend Tolkien writing in the Silmarillion. This is the undergirding prelude to the Lord of the Rings, that when Eru Ilúvatar, the One, makes all that there is, he sings it into creation. There is something in music that reflects the creative nature of God himself, to which we are endowed by being formed in the image and likeness. This is art with a capital A kind of stuff. And hell has no music. Hell hates music. Nor does hell want quiet, because quiet in the relation of peace, quiet in the relation of a stillness that requires no drama, no grasping, no grabbing, but to be
like serenity.
Taking your shoes off.
right. There are certain places that are so beautiful, certain moments that are so profound. You don't even need music.
Right.
Just in the stillness of the moment, it's all there. It's all there. What does hell have instead of music or quiet? Noise. And that's what makes them comfortable, because that's what they know, and that's what they look forward to. All of that terrible music and all of that frightful silence will be replaced one day by our noise. The cacophonous, jangly, gibbering, banging of just noise. And what a cool little way to kind of think about the differences between the two. And of course, we get this little surprise at the end where Screwtape gets so worked up he turns into a centipede. There's this kind of really neat physiognomy That is the connection between something's essence and spirit and its outward appearance. And his crassness, his ugliness, and his vitriol. It gets him so ramped up that and he just kind of turns into some sort of physically loathsome creature. And it turns out that his secretary has to kind of finish up dictating. And I'm apologizing to all of us, all the entomologists out there who's, oh no, centipedes are beautiful. Most of us think that they're pretty creepy and awful.
Mhm. Too many legs.
All of which are in hell.
I wouldn't, yeah, I would say that's true.
Transformation proceeds from within and is a glorious manifestation of that life force which our Father would worship if he worshiped anything but himself.
I love that line.
Again, self, 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 me. Power comes in within you. In my present form, I feel even more anxious to see you, to unite you to myself in an indissoluble embrace. Please catch the undertone of a threat. Do these guys hug? No. Do these guys unite in love or joy or fellowship or community? How do they unite?
In hatred. Or,
Remember, A is A. I am me and nothing else. And if
that's-
something that is not me can become me, how is it going to become me? Because I consume it, I destroy it, I dominate it, I take it. In these little insecty thoughts, it's even more pressing. But if Screwtape wants to unite with you, that means he wants to swallow you. Yes,
Devour you.
that's right. The hungry tiger doesn't want to be your buddy. So this is you know, kind of true colors being shared on this.
I think this is a stupid question. But transformation proceeds from within is a glorious manifestation of capital letter life force, which capital letter alpha. Talking about. Say it.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure.
Yes.
That-
Again, this is
which
very much
our Father would worship if he worshipped anything other than himself, or he worships himself.
correct.
And so do his under.
Yeah.
Worship themselves.
Yes.
But they unite because they're all into consuming and dominating and devouring.
No, they don't. They never.
And I missed
They,
that. What
yeah,
they unite
they
now.
they don't unite at all. They
But-
collaborate,
Because they're all selfishly wanting to consume something. Us.
or perhaps even each other.
Or even each other. Oh.
This is a dog eat dog lower hierarchy. You know, how do you think you advance lower and lower in hell? You know, this is you know,
But they-
if you're going to create your own job opening, perhaps it's because you eliminated your boss, not because you worked harder than him.
But they know they're in it. They know.
So
Like-
aren't you going to grasp and spit and
Right.
fight all the way?
That's true.
Yeah. There's two ways to be removed from the club by a bouncer. And one way is to say, okay, you got me. And the other way is to say, is go and kick it and scream.
So us in our unsafe state or our selfish state,
Uh-huh.
we do this same thing to some
The
degree.
power within me is the power that will transform and control my life because I am the captain of my own fate in the sense of I own myself, and through my force of will shall the world be shaped around me.
So you've known people over time. Where I come in and out of this and, you know, I can do this and realizing, no, I can't.
Yeah,
And I do a lot better when I realize. I can do it.
right. All right, anything else?
That was good.
All right. All right, good to have you. Okay, see you guys next time. Later.